Move up the ladder to a different kind of jump.
Oh, I am.
Hello, everyone. We're going to call a regular meeting to order. The time is now 7 o'clock. Requirements of the Sunshine Law have been met.
Teach me.
The meeting was advertised in Burlington County Times, April 21st, 2022. An electronic notice was given pursuant to NJAC 5:39-1.5. We will now start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will now have a moment of silence.
God help us.
Roll call.
Committeewoman Berkeley.
Present.
Committeeman Carr.
Present.
Committeeman Silva.
Present.
Committeewoman Mungo. Mayor Henley.
Present.
Also present, Township Administrator, Acting Clerk, Township Solicitor, Fire and Police Chiefs.
We will now begin with the presentation for the swearing of Police Sergeant Dennis Davis. Oh. I had to come. Oh,
It's nice when they all come out with you.
Dennis Davis, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same and to the governments established in the United States and in this state under the authority of the people, and that I will faithfully, impartially, justly perform all duties of the police sergeant for West Hampton Township Police Department. According to the best of my ability. So help me God. Congratulations.
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 Yes. We will take a short break for cake and refreshments in the lobby. Everyone is welcome. Huh? Yes, that's what I'm talking. Go outside to make sure. Huh? We want to check with them outside or no?
I don't think they're coming back.
Yeah. Thanks, Craig.
Lieutenant, you could see was the first one to get
Perfect.
I'd rather laugh than get upset about things. No, yeah. Yeah. I know you don't, you never know the first thing.
So we're going to continue. Everyone who's outside they're happy outside, so we're going to continue with the meeting. So we're going to start with the approval of minutes from May 3rd, 2022. Require meeting minutes. Do we have a motion?
Next time, and I'll bring.
Carl motion.
Do we have a second?
De Silva second.
Roll call?
Berkeley?
Yes.
Carr?
Yes.
Silva?
Yes.
Mayor Henry?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
We will open the open meeting for public comments. Please remember to state your name and address for the record. Yep.
Okay, Mayor Henry, this is for agenda items only.
Yeah, agenda.
For agenda items only, I'm sorry. Check.
Yep, you're on.
Is it working?
Yep,
Maybe.
try it.
Okay. Gary Rivera, 138 Winstead. The agenda item that I have a question about, or a comment, I guess, is 10A. It's the ordinance 5-2022, the ordinance on the fixation of salaries, et cetera. So I looked at the packet that was attached to the meeting. So I looked at it just a little while ago. I'm assuming that the link that had the PDF materials is the most current. Was there anything that superseded that recently, as of this evening, like later, for example? Only because I just want to make sure I'm talking about the most, current information here, the actual resolution.
That's current, yeah. That's
Okay. So my question or my comment on the ordinance is under section 1, it discusses the yearly compensation for full-time officials and employees under quota bargaining unit. It shows the construction official. So the construction official is under a bargaining unit, is that right? Okay, didn't know. And the minimum salary and then the maximum band, $75,144. Does that sound accurate, more or less? Okay, and I know that we appointed Mr. Holshoe on the 3rd, right, by resolution. So he's doing 2 jobs, correct? So he's getting paid to do both jobs, or he's getting 2 salaries for 2 separate jobs? The only reason I'm asking is because he was appointed at a different salary under that resolution. He's appointed at $85,000, so that's obviously above the maximum. The other question or comment that I had on this ordinance was that I looked at all of the job titles, classification, section 1. I looked at all section 2. I did not see a classification for a zoning official. So I'm not sure if that's an oversight, if we just forgot to list that and what the pay range would be. So maybe just take a look at that. And then my only other question is on section 2, the non-bargaining folks, the public defender. I have a soft spot in my heart for public defenders. The maximum salary for that, and I get it, it's not a full-time thing, I totally understand that. They're paid at, according to this schedule, the max is $20,400. Just above that line is the prosecutor. They're paid at $35,000. This has been an issue throughout the entire state, all 565 municipalities in our state, right? There's an issue of perception of fairness, right? It's not just optics, right, what perceives to be fair or not, but it's also impacting access to justice. So I don't know, just something for you to think about here. Personally, I'd like to see the public defender salary the same line as the prosecutor, the same line for the minimum and the same line for the maximum. In fact, they're probably in line for a pay bump, if that can be even accommodated. I'm just saying that I think what's most important probably, and for your thought, is why are we paying the public defender less than the prosecutor? So that's my comment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have anyone else on agenda items only? So do we have a motion to close?
Carl motion. De Silva second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Monthly reports, West Hampton Township Police Department report, West Hampton Township Fireman/EMS report, West Hampton Township Public Works Department report as well. Ordinance 3-2022, ordinance of the Township of West Hampton.
Mayor Henley.
Yes.
That's incorrect. Ordinance number.
5.
This one?
Here.
Let me change it. Oh. Wow, okay, I'm sorry. So that's not on this copy, I presume. Ordinance 5-2022, an ordinance of the Township of West Hampton to fix the salary, wages, and compensation of certain officials and employees of the West Hampton Township, of the Township of West Hampton for the year of 2022. This is the first reading. Do we have a motion?
De Silva make a motion.
Carl, second.
Do we ask for a roll call on this?
Question, Mayor?
Sure.
Since he brought it up, between now and the second reading, should we revise the construction official's salary to include that? Since we're paying him more than the maximum on what we are passing tonight or tomorrow, next time. I guess that's up to the township administrator and the attorney. It says 75, but we're paying him 85.
If I may, I'll review it with the administrator in the interim. If a substantive change needs to be made, then the ordinance would have to be reintroduced at the next meeting and adopted at the following meeting. If no substantive change needs to be made, then it can be heard, a public hearing can be at the next meeting and it'd be adopted at that time.
Okay. And I had another question for you. I already discussed this with Wendy. We're voting
Oh, they couldn't
on,
hear you, Bob. You couldn't hear him? Oh, they couldn't hear what you were
Oh.
saying, Bob.
What I said is that we'll review it, and if substantive change has to be made, such as increasing the salary line item for the construction official, then the ordinance would have to be reintroduced, amended and reintroduced at the next meeting, and a public hearing would be conducted at the meeting following that, so the June to the July meeting. If instead it is correct as it's written, or if there's a mere clerical error, public hearing can be had at the June meeting.
okay, my other question for you is the fact that this is what, and when I talked to Wendy, this is what we've always done. So to me, I'm not talking about making changes this time, but I'm wondering your legal opinion if it's wise to have negotiated a contract and then put this in something that we pass double. Is it something that's going to get us in trouble the next time you negotiate a contract? And should we be approving it as an ordinance here and approving it as a negotiating there? Shouldn't it be one or the other? Does that make sense? Do you understand my question? Not this year, but in
Yeah.
future years.
I think I understand your question, and the negotiated contract and the ordinance serve two different purposes. And how I've always seen it in every other town is simply the incorporation of the salary scale within a negotiated contract is placed into the ordinance with reference to the negotiated contract.
Okay, so that's okay to do it that way. Thank you.
Should we now ask for a roll call? Roll call?
Barclay.
Yes,
Carr.
Yes.
Silva.
Yes.
Mayor Henley.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Resolution 77-22, payment of vouchers. This resolution approves the payment of bills through 5/17/2022. Roll call?
De Silva make a motion.
second Berkeley?
Sorry.
Roll call.
Sorry, Barclay.
Berkeley, second. De Silva.
Barclay.
Yes,
Carr.
Yes.
De Silva.
Yes.
Mayor Henley.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Consent agenda resolution, consent agenda. Resolutions note, consent agenda items are considered to be routine and will be enacted with a single motion. Any items requiring expenditure are supported by a certification of availability of funds. Any items requiring discussion will be removed from the consent agenda. Do we have anything that needs to be removed? So do we have a motion?
De Silva make a motion.
Berkeley, second.
Roll call?
Barclay.
Yes,
Carr.
Yes.
De Silva.
Yes.
Mayor Henley.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
OPM mailbox and correspondence, there are none. We will now open the meeting for public comment. Please remember to state your name and address for the record.
Come on now.
Gary Brown, 138 Winstead. Well, I guess the first thing I'll say is congratulations to Sergeant Davis. Excellent, well done. My public comment, I'll go back to that resolution, that 5-2022, only because I was a little bit puzzled. There's also a classification of hourly employees, and I noticed the minimum column. That looks like it's below the New Jersey minimum wage now. It's showing $8.60. I scrubbed every possible statute and regulation, and I couldn't see that they are entitled to be paid less than the state minimum wage. So I'm not sure if that has to be revised. So just something, my public comment on that. And then I noticed that when the recycling comes, at least in my development, when the blue cans are picked up and deposited into the truck, right, I'm guessing that all of the collectibles are sort of compacted. Now, what's happening is my guess is that glass debris is spilling out from that vehicle, and it's literally just covering the street with broken glass. I can't prove that because I'm not out there video it, but I'm just saying that it would help us some if maybe the next time there's recycling out there, maybe someone from Public Works and just kind of keep an eye on it and just see if that's really the case. Because it could be a malfunction with the vehicle, or maybe it's a training issue with the driver or whatnot. But obviously that's an issue, right? You're driving and you got busted glass everywhere. So kind of just keep that in mind. And then my other public comment is only because I was looking at the public defender here in the municipality. I don't know if any of you have been to municipal court to kind of just observe it. I went a couple of years ago to observe it, and I can give you my thoughts on that. But I actually pulled the 3-page application to prove indigency to get appointed a public defender. I don't know if you've looked at this at all, or if you haven't in a while. The form was written way back in 2003. It's probably a little overdue for possibly some revision, modernize it. That's my guess. I'm not an expert on this. So one suggestion is maybe reach out to Jean Stanfield's office and see if she can arrange some sort of a meeting with the judiciary and see if this is, definitely overdue for a revision. Number one. Number two, a few years ago, New Jersey passed the New Jersey Judiciary Veterans Assistance Project. I don't know if you're familiar with that. And the process for linking veterans to services, I'm just going to read it, it's just really from the website here. It says, veterans are identified at the earliest possible point as they enter the court system. There are multiple points at which a referral to a local VSO can be initiated. I think this form is the perfect opportunity to make sure that who's ever working here in the court system, and if somebody marks off that they're indigent and they're a veteran, then we can route that to the appropriate body for services for the veteran, right? It'll help the veteran, it'll help the burden of the public defender. Just my comment on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is this already on? Hi, my name's Nikki Thatcher. I live at 201 Rancocas Court. And I'm super nervous being up here right now, so forgive me if I stutter a little bit. I was here 2 weeks ago. My daughter was one of the ones who won the essay contest for the 6th grade, and my son was the one in the front row who is convinced he's Sonic the Hedgehog. So I am here, and I want to apologize also for being late. I dropped my other daughter off at gymnastics at 7, and they are the reason why I'm here right now. So, as I said, I live on Rancocas Court, and I feel like we're kind of a little cul-de-sac that often gets forgotten about in the community. Our recycling sometimes doesn't come by. They kind of pass our street often. Our trash men kind of pass our street. There's no street that goes from the court over into the actual village. You have to go out onto Rancocas Road, which is technically Willingboro. So we get forgotten about a lot. And another thing that I think gets forgotten about is our street maintenance. My son is almost 5, he'll be 5 this week, and he rides his bike often, and he rides his scooter also. My daughter, who won the essay contest, she roller skates, she skateboards, she also rides her bike. My other daughter, my oldest daughter, also rides a bike. I have neighbors to the left of me with another school-age child who's 6. Her name is Carrera. She rides a bike also and rides scooters with my son. I have neighbors to the right of me with 2 school-age children. Colette is 10, who also rides a bike and a scooter with my children. And Hannah is 6, who also rides a scooter and a bike with my son. I have a stack of pictures here. One of them is Hannah inside the pothole that she fell in with her scooter. Another picture is my son literally underneath the piece of the road
Can we see?
that Hannah tripped over.
I've seen them.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. There's another picture that is that same piece of the road after it rains and after some trucks rode over it. It's all broken up. Those pictures, because they're in black and white, really doesn't know justice. When they're in color, you can see just how deep the potholes are. Right now, they just look kind of gray, but there is a puddle outside of my house that stays there for about 5-6 days after it rains because it's so large. I've seen them patch probably one time since I've lived there, and that patch didn't hold very well. I've never seen anybody come pave or anything like that. And so I just really came here tonight to try to advocate, for the kids in the cul-de-sac that I live in, because one of the things that attracted me to living in a cul-de-sac was the fact that it's safe,
Not a lot of
because
traffic.
there's no through traffic.
Right.
But it's really difficult for them to do any of their activities when they're tripping over things and, falling in those holes. So that's really all I had for you guys tonight. Thank you.
You may.
So your road is actually on the schedule to be resurfaced, and we were supposed to do it last year. It was part of a package deal where your road and another road across town, and something happened with that road, so it kind of broke that package deal. So we're looking into that. We actually have a meeting with the engineer next Monday to go over the upcoming roads, and yours is on that list. So I just want you to sit tight. We're getting to the promise. You are not forgotten. As far as your trash and your recycling, we unfortunately don't handle that here, but if you give us a call, we can make sure that things get picked up.
Well, I have the number on speed dial because it happens so often. So don't worry.
Trust me,
Me
you're
and
on the list.
all of our neighbors were on top of that. So
We've got you. So
I
sit
appreciate
tight.
that.
We're getting to it.
Thank
I
you for your time.
Thank you for bringing it up, ma'am. I appreciate it. Oh, I think Odie's coming down to bring the pictures. Unless you want us to hold on to them.
You guys can keep it. I have copies.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else with a comment?
Terrence Brown, 9 Pine Tree Drive. Again, thank you for allocating some money for the master plan. We found out that it's a little over $11,000 or so for the planner to kind of look into this. So just kind of want to get from the committee, like, what do you actually, do you think 11,000 is enough money for him to actually do anything to start looking at, like zoning and all this ordinances, or just the future of West Hampton? $11,000 is not that much money. I mean, you almost spent close to that with the basketball court. So just kind of want to get your comment on that from the leaders of West Hampton. Thank you.
Thank you.
Christina Getz at 109 West Maple. I had a couple
questions that I wanted to ask. Terrence already got one of them. But I noticed that within the township here, there's been a high staffing turnover rate. And I was just wondering if exit interviews are being done by a solicitor, or is the board doing them to figure out why people are leaving, if there's like a specific reason or something that's going on. It seems to be a little concerning to keep staff here, to make sure West Hampton is running correctly. And then also wondering who, is it you guys that are going to decide how that grant from MRP is spent? I believe the basketball courts, like that's where that money came from. I didn't know if you're planning on also paving it instead of just doing the actual net and stuff like that, and what else we plan on using that money for. Anthony and I used to live in Mount Laurel, and they used to have a lot of community outreach events with like the police department. They have a thing in the summer where if they see a kid wearing their helmet, going through the crosswalks, they would give them a coupon for a pizza place to get a free slice of pizza. And the police officers will go around and reward good behavior, kids playing at a park, things like that. So I didn't know if money from that could be helped to use to the police department to help do events like that, or like have an ice cream night with a police officer and have Mr. Softy or Kona Ice come. Just a way to get the community and like the police department and everything involved.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Hello, everyone. My name is Emily Hess. I am an employee here at West Hampton Township. My address is Route 72 in Chatsworth.
Can't hear you.
I'm really nervous, so excuse me. I just wanted to express to the committee and the rest of our community how much I thoroughly enjoy being here and being a part of this organization. I want to express my appreciation to the staff members and to the administration and to you all as well for just supporting me and being there for when I needed, the help with my job and help with moving my career forward. I know there's some negativity a little bit surrounding us, and I would just like for us all to I would just like for us to be better together and just, I don't know how to word it, but I just want to thank everyone for being there and for supporting me and for supporting the township and the community. So thank you, and thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone? Come on up.
Hi, I'm Nicole Littleton, and I live at 29 months. I thought somebody else was going to bring this up, but I don't think they will. There was pictures posted on our West Hampton page of large concern on the park at Spring Meadows and the amount of mulch that has been layered over the years. I guess there's very few inches between the bottom of the swing sets and the mulch. They posted pictures of the, I actually have pictures on the front. The benches, there's probably about this much space between the mulch and the bottom of the benches. It's just a big concern. It looks like a safety concern, some broken equipment over there. And they were just feeling forgotten. It sounded, the original post sounded like maybe it was some elderly ladies who like to sit in the morning and just meet up with each other and enjoy the morning, but if they can't get off the benches once they get on them, because their knees are right in their face. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
No, thanks. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Middleton.
And
Spring Meadows. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure I was following.
No.
That's okay.
Mayor, may I?
You may.
That was actually addressed with our Public Works Department, and they are going to be addressing the levels of mulch that they're going to be taking care of it.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
My name is Olga Patterson. I live in 11 Douglas Line, and I'm also with the same concern. When we sit down, because there's only this space between the seat in the mulch. It's hard for us grandmas to get up without assistance, right? But when we were talking about that issue, also parents were mentioning there was some safety concerns about the playground itself. You know, the parents, the wooden part is like gaps between the wooden pieces. Somebody got hurt, a little girl got hurt, stuck because it came apart, so it's like her leg got stuck on it. So I guess somebody has to go and check out, you know, because like the mulch, you know, we've been there since 1998. They've been putting mulch on top, you know, and I don't know what it's going to take to fix the benches, but also maybe they need to check the equipment for the safety of the children. I know when it comes to I didn't notice that what that lady was pointed out. I noticed in the swings is the same problem with the mulch. They are so low, my 21-month grandson can swing, but I'm like 89 years old because it's so, you know, so low. Okay?
No, I understand.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone? Okay. So we will close for public comment. All in favor?
Aye.
Perfect. Dates to remember. Next scheduled meeting will be June the 14th, 2022 at 7 p.m. The West Hampton Township PD will do a mock crash at BCIT on May the 20th at 10 a.m. Timbuktu Advisory Committee Historical Site Tour will be May 21st at 1 o'clock. Do we have any committee liaison reports or comments?
Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to again say congratulations to Sergeant Davis. The sergeant's key to maintaining policing excellence when working with subordinate superiors and the public alike. He's done his time as a technician and a specialist, and as a sergeant, Sergeant Davis will play a critical role in the culture of the police department, as well as an essential role in providing hands-on management of police resources. I'm confident that Sergeant Davis can lead from the front and support his officers and faithfully serve the residents of West Hampton, so congrats and well-deserved. On that note, I'd like to say I spent time with Lieutenant Ferguson and Beery at a hiring event and also at active shooter training. I just want to let Chief Hent and the command staff know about the effort I observed in training the rank and file. They do not take their duties lightly, and our men and women in blue work very hard to protect us, and I thought it'd be nice to remind the public of the opus done by them every day. Finally, Burlington County is stigma-free and West Hampton is now stigma-free. I'd like to thank Mayor Henley and the Township Committee for declaring West Hampton a stigma-free zone during this month of mental health awareness. According to the American Psychiatric Association, more than half the people with mental illness avoid or delay seeking treatment due to concerns being treated differently or fears of losing a job or livelihood. Similarly, veterans today experience mental illness at a rate of 3 to 5 times of that of their civilian counterpart. I'm proud of West Hampton for supporting our community members in eliminating a negative culture and encouraging treatment without fear of stigma. On that note, Mr. Barrera, I was reading the Judiciary's website about that 2004 Veteran Action Plan, and I think to date they've helped maybe something about 500,000 veterans. Chief Ent emailed us a Justice-Involved Veterans program last week. I had the opportunity to speak with the social worker, Mr. Kevin Carr-Lemke, about identifying these individuals and getting them introduced into the pipeline. So we're going to be working on that. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
I'd like to congratulate Dennis Davis on the sergeant. Definitely a good asset to the West Hampton Police Department. I want to thank the residents for coming out and all your comments and your concerns. Without you guys letting us know what's going on in our community, we wouldn't know as much. Just like you guys, we live in different sections of West Hampton, so we don't see a lot of the stuff that you guys see. I know your road was one of our roads that we were talking about redoing, so that was something that a resident had came out before and addressed that to us. The playground, that could be, that is a issue that needs to be addressed. If kids are getting hurt on it, we don't want any of our kids in our township to be hurt from playing, you know. So that's all I have, and thank you all for coming out again.
Also, congratulations to Sergeant Davis, and thank you for everyone coming out, and I agree with you. I live in a different area than all of you, so I knew about the road, but I had no idea about the playground, and it's good to know, and I'm glad that we already are on it and fixing it. Talking about Sergeant Davis, it happens to be a great week because this week is National Police Week, and it's also National EMS Week, and those weeks are to designate a time to thank all of our EMS and police for the important work that they do. And personally, I've been a person who has needed both those groups, and I appreciate it. But we do have the best EMS, fire, and police, I think, in the world. Not that I'm biased, but we do. I see all they do, and what makes them the best is they care. They're not here just to do a job. They really care about the town and the residents, and I appreciate that. The senior picnic that we were going to have Memorial Day, we had conflicts with the fields being used, and also we're trying to get a better way of getting a complete list of senior citizens. We have it, but we don't, and a lot of senior citizens don't use Facebook, so we're trying to see if we could do a 911 callback or a Nexus or get lists of people to contact, so we don't have to use Facebook or we don't have to spend thousands of dollars sending out letters. But we are going to do that in the fall. I give kudos to the school. They've had this program for a long time, and again, I didn't know. It's called Adopt an 8th Grader. And I don't know about all you, but my last year of 8th grade and my last year of high school, or last month of high school, you just want to get out and get on and move on. And this is a way that adults in our community who don't even know these kids adopt an 8th grader, and they drop off little notes and little gifts and little encouragement that one more month you can make it and soon you'll be in high school. And the kids love it, and it's a way of us joining together doing good things. And I also agree, I'm glad that we did the stigma-free. It's great to announce it. I hope that we could get a group of people to talk about how to take the announcement and actually do things in our township to promote that, to give help to people who need it, and to stop people from harassing other people who have different kinds of abilities and problems. I read something, and I guess I'm thinking of Buffalo, which is on my mind a lot. And I read something that said, no one is the same. If we attack everyone who's different than us or believes different things of us, then there's not going to be anyone left in the world. So I think we need to talk about the things that we have in common and try to celebrate that and protect those people who are going through hard times. Thank you.
You're welcome. So I'll try to answer as many of the questions that I can. First, congratulations to our new sergeant. We're trying to continue to build up our police department, and everyone up here shares the same sentiments. Our police department, fire department, EMS are fantastic for things that I've seen them I've witnessed, or what I've needed them to do, or even my neighbors, etc. I've seen them in action, and they've done an excellent job. So extremely proud of those guys, and trusting our chiefs to always make the right decisions and put the right people in place to be successful. So if I'm not mistaken, when we're talking about the master plan, that was a recommended amount, right? Yeah, that was recommended by the professional. So we didn't cheap them out. That's someone who already works with us, right? They're already one of our engineers, and that was their recommendation. So we went with their recommendation. MRP fund, when we talk about the basketball courts were mostly done by volunteers from the local. All we paid for were the basketball courts. Are they done? No. They're gonna fill the cracks. Actually, Public Works will fill like the cracks in, and then they'll do some striping, but we pay for none of that. The only thing that we pay for, where the basketball courts, the MRP fund was for community redevelopment. So it's a specific line item that has to be used for specific things. We can't just use it for whatever we want. We'd love to, but, you know, with the guidelines, with everything that comes with that money, we only are allowed to use it for certain things. So that really fit. The other part of that was in understanding the way pilots work. So pilots send money directly to the township, right? But they don't give money to the schools and they don't give money to the county. So we had done pilots, not we as in this group, but we as in West Hampton had done pilots previously, and it kind of put our schools in a bad position. That was with residential, not with the warehouse. So when we did this pilot, I reached out to our superintendent and I told them that, you know, what they were looking to do, if they were looking to do something, we would use some money to be able to help them. It was just a blessing that we ended up getting community redevelopment money. And it was even more of a blessing that we were able to do it and really not spend any money and get the unions to local unions to dedicate their time and their efforts to doing it. So that was a huge win for us. Now, what's going to come down the pike, I would assume is things that, you know, there's things that over the last few years, believe it or not, so not to be long, but believe it or not, that basketball court, I had an email from a resident going back from 3 to 4 years ago that emailed over and over about that basketball court and how it was an eyesore and how it needed to be done. So that's how it ended up getting some of the attention. It was something that's been worked on for quite some time. It wasn't just haphazard. So what I would say is obviously we would love to listen to, you know, what's big in the community and what needs to be done and be able to discuss that and be able to, you know, to use the money rightfully. Like, to be honest with you, like, the parks, the things for the kids are the things that we really, you know, really research and care about. But it's not just about what we care about, it's what everyone cares about, and being able to affect as many people as possible with a small amount of money for the township. Touchy to talk about employees that were here, but to my knowledge, there's no employee that's been terminated. So I don't know what we could do with that. So, that's, you know, I'll leave that there. But there's no one who's been, to my knowledge, that's been fired. Right, but most of our employees have been here 25, 30 years. So I don't know if they were never going to leave. So, I mean, that's, you know, I mean, I don't know how to really express that. And from this seat, I know what it looks like. I've been on Facebook, but you know what? Everybody has their own narrative. So you got to be careful. And that's all I can really tell you about that. And I wouldn't fall into it, but you can. But everyone pretty much has their own narrative on there. And you can read it if you really know what's going on. And I hope I have a problem understanding my own handwriting.
I can't understand that.
You're not supposed to be cheating. Thank you, Emily. Thank you, the police department. Oh, so you already heard what Wendy said. Public Works will go out and take a look at everything. And I live in Spring Meadow, so obviously it's close to home, but as important, you know, I think it's a great opportunity to be able to sit out in the morning, especially when it's starting to get warm, to be able to enjoy a lot of the air, especially when we've been trapped in for so long. So I can definitely appreciate that. And man, you know, from what I've seen, I'm sorry that your kids have to go through that. And I'm happy to hear that we got everything in process to be able to help you out. That shouldn't be your situation. So I'm sorry to see that. And I'm glad we're moving forward to help you. And with that being said, we're going to move to
Kind of involved the master plan.
You could, well, we're past the comments, but.
Well, to what you said, right?
Okay.
You said that the money is based upon what the engineer told you is required.
Recommendation.
But they're also working off of requirements that the board sets forward, right? You provide the wind and ask of what needs to be done, and then they provide you with an estimate of what it's going to cost to accomplish that.
Not necessarily, because none of us are engineers. So we've always said that we rely on the professionals. So I rely on them to tell me. I don't tell them anything. I don't pretend to know what I don't know.
So the wrong way to operate a business and order bank or money
May.
What do you mean? Go ahead.
So there was a recommendation by the planning board, I believe it was the end of last year, regarding review of I think it's the industrial zone. And based on that recommendation that was given to CME, that is the township planner, and has been involved in really all of the applications for the last year. So is aware of what the applications are that are coming into town over the last year and a half at least. Based on that, they provided us with a quote of, based on them doing these same type of reviews in other towns, how much it would cost to do it. And based on that quote, that's where the 11,000 came from. So I don't understand what's the difficulty in doing it in that fashion?
Well, when we talked, a couple weeks ago, you said about $70,000 to redo a master plan, but you have an allocation of $11,000 for a budget. That means what we talking about is not possible, right?
So the master plan is a large document that has many different sections. Considering the budget constraints and what the request was from the planning board, it's a very focused review on the industrial zone, and I believe there's one other zone, but I don't know off the top of my head that's being reviewed, as opposed to reviewing the entire town and every zone in the town. For example, the housing element of fair share plan. That is a part of the master plan, but since that was just adopted 18 months ago, that does not need to be reviewed. A full master plan review and rewriting is what would cost $70,000, if not more. And it would be a process that would take a year. I believe that was what the planner told us. This is a more focused review on what the planning board said was a concern of theirs, and what is happening to the town over the last couple of years.
I understand what you're saying, but I know that the land board last year, on one of the meetings, had put together an official letter to Westhampton to ask for a redo of the master plan. So who decided that it was only going to be the one thing and not a whole redo?
I'm not sure what letter you're talking of. My recollection was that it was a more focused request.
Bob, I was a part of that group and part of the 3 people who made that request.
Sure.
And in the letter, the reasons why we asked for that all had to do with industrial areas.
Okay.
Right.
We had talked about, you were there, Sandra.
Yes.
We talked about because this happened, and it has changed the landscape of Westhampton, and it's still changing. So even though we asked for a renewal of the master plan, we were mainly concerned about the industry part.
Right.
And trying to control that, and also our concerns were where to put it in a place that it would not interfere with residents, the traffic already, and different things, and trying to find a place where industry would be appropriate and move the zones around, and that would take a through review of the master plan. But I remember in the letter, maybe you didn't see the whole letter, but in the whole letter, the reasons why were all based on industry. And I think, looking at all of you, that's where mainly probably I would think that your concerns are. I don't think you're concerned about where we should make new farmland or where we should have houses that have 2-acre lots, but I believe the residents' concerned was what's happening with the industrial zone, and we need to review and revamp it. So to answer you, I'm sorry to butt in, but I was a part of those 3 people that worked on that.
And I was there, so that's why I think that maybe I didn't explain it properly, but it didn't come from us. Like, it came from there.
The scope was defined.
Right.
By the engineer. It wasn't transparent because I've been on every land development board meeting over the last year. And it was just like we requested that master plan redone. It wasn't any sense we limited the scope, right?
Right.
So our understanding is.
No, I understand.
For the master plan to be redone. But at the end of the day, to my point, the scope had to be defined. The scope was defined by
The planning board.
Planning.
And then the planning board engineer, who's doing it, got their and we in the township paid for it. So, I mean, yeah, that's what what I was saying was it was in the hands of the professionals who are taking care of it. And the Land Development Board is that's one of the best boards that we have here. Like, it's full of the professionals that have been on there for a long time. So the township committee didn't really butt in on that. Like, they sent us a letter, we followed up with what they were looking for, and we left it in the hands of CME, who, if you know our professionals, are engineers that are covering the township, is Alima. Alima is not doing it, CME is doing it. That's the engineers that cover the Land Development Board. So I apologize if we weren't if you didn't see as much transparency, but we just really followed the direction, and then they explained what the price would be, and we found the money to pay it.
I understand that, and I understand, what plan do you have in place to check your profession? Because there was a lot of errors made in this recent last interaction that the community had to come together and get a lawyer to point out some of these things, which if we didn't, the community never did that, I mean, nobody would have ever known the sales out there, nobody would never knew all this other stuff, and we went straight through. So, I mean, what fails that you guys have to protect yourself as the leaders of this community? Just can't put it off like, oh, we're not a professional.
I mean, but I think that, I agree, like, you know, so, go ahead.
Mayor, the planning process for the adoption of the master plan, there's going to be opportunities for public input. There'll be a planning board meeting where the recommendations of the plan are presented, and at that point in time, public has an opportunity to make their comments on the plan, and the planning board can make adjustments to the recommendations of the planner at that time. After that, it comes to the committee for the committee to endorse the plan. There's an opportunity at that time for the public to make comments also. Subsequent to the adoption and the endorsement of the master plan, then there will be ordinances, zoning ordinances that are adopted consistent with the changes to the master plan. Those are like any other ordinance where they are introduced at one meeting and then a public hearing and adoption at the next meeting. And as I said with the salary ordinance, if in that interim, after any of those zoning ordinances are introduced, if public has comments and the committee wants substantive changes to those, such as a recommendation that for X, Y, and Z reason, a certain property be taken out of the industrial zone, if that's something that the committee agrees with, then the ordinance can be amended, reintroduced, and then adopted with a public hearing. So it's a lengthy process, and while there wasn't the input that you were looking for in the definition of the scope of this process, there will be several opportunities for all of you to make comments on what's included in the master plan and then what's included in the subsequent ordinances.
And what I was going to say is annually. We choose our professionals annually. So every January when we do reorg is when we select our professionals. Fair?
I have one comment, and I know we're talking about a very specific, my name is Tiana Brown. I'm Reverend Brown's wife. I know we're talking about a very specific part of the master plan, and I appreciate those comments. But ever since Councilwoman Nancy made her comment about translating the stigma, that we're a stigma-free township now, I've been thinking about that. And as the master plan is possibly being re-envisioned in the long term, maybe this is an opportunity for us to operationalize what it means to be stigma-free in West Hampton. I say this because I'm a scientist, I'm a mental health professional, so I would like to follow up on the Councilwoman's suggestion to really put this in practice and to protect those who are struggling from mental illness in a way that is solidified in the master plan.
And I think that's it. I know that Nancy's an open book, so if you guys want to talk afterwards, please do.
I message your husband, I can give him information. Thank you, that would be great.
So we're going to move to closed session.
No, I think we're on the
Oh,
workshop.
I'm sorry. Workshop, I don't even know where we're at. We're going to move into workshop for the future of West Hampton EMS and related
Well,
improvements.
that kind of related, you know, it's all
Yes, absolutely. You ready?
I just have a few documents. To follow up on the stigma-free zone, for many that don't know, the police and the fire department, West Hampton is home to so many drug, alcohol, and addiction rehab facilities, and there's not a day that doesn't go by that the police and fire department don't interact with somebody with a mental health emergency in some way, shape, or form. Probably 2, 3, sometimes even 4 or 5 times a day, we're interacting with people who have some sort of stigma to say. So we are well-trained. The police department has gone through lots of training for that. Our department has as well. And again, to say we're stigma-free, yes, we are. We're in the streets every day. So I just wanted to call that out. I have.
Thank you.
So one of the main reasons that I wanted to have this workshop and request this workshop is there's been a lot of talk in the community with the building of the new property on Springside Road, the addition of 500 apartments and mixed-use houses. So over the last couple of months, there's been discussion on the possible need for a second firehouse on that side of town, our staffing, our call volume and such. So I just want to take this opportunity to sort of review where we're at right now and sort of put out where we need to go, how we should go, how the committee would like us to go, and sort of just get, not looking for any real hard answers tonight, but just sort of get it out there so people can understand where we may need to go. So the first thing is just a quick review of the services we provide. We are the fire department. We do still respond to fires. We do EMS as well. So that's the ambulance, motor vehicle accidents, hazmat response, water rescue. We also do fire inspections, code enforcement, pre-plans, building construction planning reviews. We're out in the community as much as possible, and we also do get cats out of the trees when we are stuck. Current operations, we have one current firehouse. We are a combination department. That means that we are a combination of full-time employees, per diem employees, and then we also have volunteers. We currently have 18 full-time firefighters. Myself working Monday through Friday as a fire chief. We have 2 in the Fire Marshal Bureau doing inspections Monday through Friday. We have 3 shift lieutenants, so they're the ones that are in charge of the shift 24 hours a day. And then we have 11 firefighters assigned to each shift. So essentially we have 4 or 5 firefighters assigned to each 24-hour shift. And when I say firefighters, I also mean EMTs. So we are one of the few communities in the county that provides both fire and EMS out of one organization, and probably the only organization in the county that does it on a 24-hour basis with a true firefighter and EMTs 24 hours a day. So a lot of towns, especially the ones around us, their fire department is in one building, and the EMS is in a separate building, or if they're in the same building, they're being run by 2 completely separate organizations. So there's going to be an EMS chief and a fire chief, and then you have EMTs just on the ambulance, and then you have firefighters on the fire trucks. Whereas here in West Hampton, we're all doing one. And then we use our per diem firefighters to pretty much fill in when our full-time staff takes off, or during the day, mostly when our call volume is the highest. Next page is just a quick view of where the resource sits. And then our call volume. So as far back as stats can go, we could find is 1996. In 1996, there was 2 firehouses in West Hampton, one in Mancocas and the current firehouse in Torransfield. And between both firehouses, there were 600 calls. Fast forward to today, in 2021, we did 4,228 calls. So if you look over that time, the math is it's a 600% in call volume in just under 25 years. And then this year, just based off of what we've currently already responded to, We're set to do 4,914 calls. So at this current pace, we're going to do probably over 5,000 calls next year. Am I going too fast?
No.
Nope.
So just quick staff requirements. Every time the pager goes off for an ambulance, that requires 2 employees to respond, 2 firefighter EMTs. Because we are a licensed agency by the Department of Health, we're legally required to put 2 EMTs on the ambulance. We can't get to a call and let's just say, hypothetically, somebody calls and says they stubbed their toe. Yes, they have. Okay, they stubbed their toe. The ambulance goes to the stubbed toe. While they're there, somebody has a heart attack across town. We legally can't leave the call for the stubbed toe to go to the cardiac emergency because we've already started patient care with the stubbed toe. So it's not even the ability for us to sort of prioritize our calls. We sort of do it one call at a time, and we go from there. The fire truck requires 4 firefighters on it safely to perform firefighting activities. That's a national law. OSHA 1910-134 requires 4 firefighters before going inside a burning house. Yes?
So Craig, so just on the EMT ambulance, so we see virtual a lot on the roads. What kind of role do they have?
So in New Jersey, EMTs, BLS, basic life support, is performed by municipalities, third-party vendors, or private nonprofits. Advanced life support, or paramedics, it has to be hospital-based. So when you see the virtual chase car, the expedition or the pickup, they're the paramedics. So they will meet us on scene and provide patient care together with us, and then all 4 of us go to the hospital together. So that's why you'll see an ambulance and then the chase car of some sort behind it. And that's in New Jersey. Other parts of the country, you have 2 paramedics on an ambulance, and that's it. But unfortunately in New Jersey, it's how we are. So, any other questions? So then, just a quick look at 2021 and the first quarter of 2022. Over 1,000 calls, or 20% of our call volume, happens, meaning that has a second ambulance at the same time. So, for example, that stub toe goes out, 20% of the time, there's going to be a second EMS call somewhere that requires a second ambulance to go to. 10% of 545 calls require both an ambulance and a fire truck. So mostly our motor vehicle accidents, our cardiac arrests, and our more serious calls where a fire truck goes. And then 272 times, or 5% of our call volume, a third ambulance is required at the same time. And then 2%, or 109 calls, we're not able to even answer because we don't have the people to do it. So really, when you look at it, it's 37%, or 2018 of the time, we require 4 or more firefighter EMTs on staff. So as you can see, and we sort of joke about it at work, and it's not a joke, is we get lucky a lot. A lot of times we get lucky where timing is literally just a few minutes apart to allow people to get back and go out and come back and go out. And just at some point, our luck's going to run out. Just to sort of put how busy we are, a couple of weeks ago, a gentleman emailed us and said, we're not the New York City Fire Department. And I sort of chuckled at it. You're right, we're not the New York City Fire Department. In the last 3 weeks, we had a new per diem EMT that we hired, who actually works for the New York City Fire Department as an EMT, actually lives here in West Hampton in Torransfield, and is now working with us when he stays off here. And his first day, he said, I'm more busier here in West Hampton than I am running an ambulance in New York City. And it's simply put is, yes, they have much more call volume, 1 million times more calls than we do, but they also have 1 million more resources to answer those calls. So we're truly, I'm not going to say we're busier than the New York City Fire Department, but for one small firehouse, we're busy, if not busier than a single firehouse in New York City. Just to sort of put that in perspective.
If I remember correctly, and I could be wrong here, but I thought that Governor Murphy issued a series of executive orders specifically to mobilize the Army National Guard, that the federal corps of the Guard would be available to communities during the COVID emergency. What's the status of that? Do we still have access?
So all those codes have expired, And in fact, for political reasons, at one point, we could operate an ambulance with one EMT and one first responder during COVID, meaning I could go find Nancy Berkeley and say, hey, I'm going to give you 3 hours of training and now you can ride my ambulance in the state of New Jersey. That executive order has since lapsed, and in fact, the state created additional law that requires 2 EMTs to be on the ambulance at all times, superseding their executive order. There was a lot of North Jersey, South Jersey politics, if you know what I mean. So that can't be done anymore.
Is there not a way that you work with the other township on something? Because I mean, my concern is, like you said, on that 2% where you're not able to staff.
Yep.
And is there not what happens in those situations?
So what happens in those times is another town is coming to help us. And we're going to other towns to help them as well. Mutual Aid is alive and well here in West Hampton, but the problem we're having is the same problems West Hampton is having is the same problems Mount Holly is having. It's the same problems that Willingboro is having. It's the same problems that Remington Township are having. So we're all sort of in this boat, and we're all, I hate to use the word Russian roulette, but we're all sort of like Russian roulette, who's available to handle calls at a certain time. Any other questions?
I have a question. So first shift, since you guys work 24 hours, is it just 4 firefighters and 2 EMTs?
Nope.
Okay.
It's going to be 4 firefighters and a lieutenant, so 4 or 5.
Okay.
And then those 4 or 5, if there's an EMS call, they're not getting on the fire truck, they're getting on the ambulance. So you're taking your 5, right? So you have 5 employees, an ambulance call goes out. Now I'm down to 3 employees. Now a second ambulance goes out, 30% of the time, 20% of the time. Now I'm down to 1 person sitting in the firehouse. And that's one of our biggest concerns, obviously. Yeah. And no different than if there's a fire, right? So if I'm left with 5 employees and a house fire goes in West Hampton, all 5 of those employees are going to be on the fire truck because we need them to go fight the fire. Now I have no ambulance. So it's sort of when I say we've gotten lucky over and over and over again, we truly have been lucky. The two house fires that we had in town so far this year, those nights, luckily, we had 6 people working that night. It just happened to work out where nobody took off the night, there was an extra person working, so both those nights we were able to have an ambulance staff and 4 on the fire truck. It's just, again, just luck has constantly been on our side, and at some point, luck's going on.
Craig, take the resident question.
Yes, so God forbid, industrial fire, those warehouses. I mean,
So yes, so yeah, absolutely. So again, when there's a fire in an industrial area or any fire in West Hampton, it's not just West Hampton going to. Okay, so we're going to have help from Mount Laurel, Willingboro, Mount Holly, Remington Township. All these places are going to come help us. No different than we go to help them. One of our biggest concerns has always been, obviously, the amount of warehouses we have in town is a huge taxpayer for West Hampton. And we don't want to get in a situation like Delanco when Dietz Watson went there. Now, they lost that tax revenue, and it never came back. Just for example, I'll use Dunkin' Donuts warehouse as an example, is they've told us for every hour they're shut down, they lose about $2 million worth of revenue. So every time they have a fire alarm that goes off and they evacuate that building, the time it takes us to get there and make sure nothing's lost, they're losing money. So we want to make sure, obviously, that the businesses in town stay open and are continue able to operate the way they should.
Yeah, the concern is if like something happens in the warehouse or something like that, if you only have 5 people on the staff, somebody has a cardiac arrest over here and you can't even get them.
Correct. And there's always going to be a limit, right? I'm not going to sit here and say, hey, we need to hire 50 people, right? Like, that's not realistic either. We can't have the magic wand and say we're going to answer 100% of the calls. It's not going to happen. There's always that chance that could happen, absolutely. We have policies and procedures in place with the county, so that way, when we do have a lot of these calls, that help comes to cover West Hampton during those times, if that answers your question.
And you could cover it up as well on the interstate, right?
Yep, 295, the turnpike is perfect examples. When we get on the turnpike, we're gone for a half hour, even if we don't get to the call. Because we have to go all the way down to Mount Laurel and come back, or we have to go all the way to exit 6, get off at Florence, go down to 130, come back up 130. It's not just as easy as just making a turn and coming back.
So Craig, if it just can, on the mutual aid, I'm not spending too much time, but I'm not sure if everybody's aware that in Burlington County, there's central dispatch. So all police and fire are dispatched from the county level. So if there is a major fire going on in West Hampton, when that 911 call comes in, they are aware that there are no available resources in West Hampton and will automatically go to the nearest staffed service. So it's a really coordinated effort from everyone from Evesham to Florence to North Hanover, and they have on their system who's available to make sure that there's a quick response.
Thank you for this additional information. So back to this 2%, it's just that West Hampton may not be able to answer the call, but the other counties.
Yes, so that's 2%. That's 2% of the time where West Hampton physically is not responding to a call. Somebody else is coming to handle that call for West Hampton now. It does not mean that you're calling 911 and nobody's coming. Somebody's coming. It's just going to take some time to get somebody there to help.
The heart attack or stroke, obviously, you need to get seen right away, especially stroke within an hour. So if you're sending somebody from East Hampton, then obviously time is precious.
Yeah, if I just my experience in dealing with fire departments in towns all over the county, that 2% is phenomenal. My experience is that is a much higher number in every town that I've dealt with. The only ones I would imagine that are a less or around that range would be the large fire departments like Evesham, which has volunteer and a paid staff, or maybe Mount Laurel. Otherwise, that is a tremendous number.
So it seems to me, because it's a phenomenal number, that it shouldn't be aspirational for us to cover this 2%. It should be a tangible goal, like we should be able to do that.
And then they go in the neighborhood.
So that it goes to me.
So, I've been looking at the call line, and you've done a good job with the stats and stuff like that. Have you considered looking at it compared to population growth of the town to see if that's what's driving the increase in call line?
So, yes, I think that's part of it. It's also a change in how people call 911. 20 years ago, people didn't call 911 when they stubbed their toe, right? They went and they got themselves a Band-Aid and they put it on their toe. Now, people are calling 911 for everything under the sun. It's the facilities that are here in West Hampton. It's the mental health facilities. It's the county facilities. It's the warehouses. It's a lot of traffic that comes in, and it's the rising population as well. Every time we have a residential property, development go in, we see within a year that call volume increase. It's naturally going to happen. So,
Craig,
yes, ma'am.
this is what I spoke with you before the meeting. I believe the state needs to get involved because in 1920, everyone could have volunteer fire departments. Mount Holly has a volunteer fire department. Morristown has a fire department that's volunteer. Tabernacle. Looking at what you've given us, an average month we go to Willingboro 100 times for EMS a month. That's 3 a day taken from us because they don't pay enough to get anyone to work in Willingboro and don't have an ambulance. East Hampton, we do have a contract, so that's different. Burlington, we go 23 times a month. Mount Holly, for fire, we go there 20 times a month. They come to us 3 times a month. And so it just seems that I've told you, I'm trying to get something where either they make people have a paid fire department, so we're not running 3 times a day to outside West Hampton and can concentrate on West Hampton. And yes, we help each other. I mean, when we had the Hustis fire, we had people from all over come to help us out. And we need that. We need to help others. But not when you have a volunteer fire department and no one shows up in your town, so we're constantly going there. Or if they want to have a volunteer fire department, they need to pay a fee to the county that's dispersed to paid fire departments who are covering those places. It just seems unfair that we have so many calls and so many are outside of West Hampton. And yes, when we need them, we do that because we need them, they come. But when you're doing 100 a month and they come twice a month to us, something's not right. So I'm sorry, you do a great job, but it's not your fault. It's the state.
Isn't one of the local volunteer fire departments out of trucks, huge staff there?
Oh, yeah, it's a nationwide issue. This isn't something that's, common in Burlington County or West Hampton or Mount Olive or anywhere. It's a nationwide shortage of fire and EMS. And, Chief Beck tell you, 10 years ago, 100 people would apply to be a police officer in West Hampton. Not just West Hampton, but just in general, any town. And now we're in, single digits probably, close to it. And we see the same problem, right? 10 years ago, we had 20 volunteers knocking on the door. Today, we have maybe 4 or 5. It's just, people are working multiple jobs. They don't want to do it for free. It's hard work. It's not easy, and it's not glamorous. It's dirty work. So it's tough. It's tough, and no different than one of you were talking about the minimum wage. Why would you come and do it for free? You can go work at those clergy that somebody works at Wawa, but you get paid $18, $20, $22 an hour working at Wawa compared to coming in and risking your life and such. So yeah, it's a nationwide issue. Any other questions? So personnel. So we do use our per diem employees to cover time off and also during mostly our days when we are the busiest. Per diems, when I started almost 18 years ago, it was great because we were paid pretty decent and we wanted to do it. And no different than what I'm just saying about volunteers is, per diems are now working multiple jobs. They're not just staying in one place. So most of our per diems that are working for us, they're working per diem at 5 different agencies. They're splitting up their hours amongst all these agencies, pretty much going to whoever's paying them 25 cents more, they hope more time. So it's very hard to keep, these people here. And then as soon as they get a full-time job, they're out and they're gone. They're getting burned out because they're working multiple jobs. And just the costs associated with training them. When they come in, they have to be trained, they have to learn West Hampton, they have to be outfitted in gear. There's all sorts of costs associated with our per diem employees. Any question on personnel at all? Yes. So the next area of concern is our apparatus needs. As I know you all probably have known, the ladder truck that we've had has been nothing but problems since the day we purchased it. The township has negotiated multiple warranty issues, I guess we could say, with the ladder truck. That's all well in the past. There's nothing we can do with that anymore. The ladder truck so far this year has been out of service almost 2 months. It's currently in service working with a temporary fix. The problem we're having right now is the apparatus manufacturer was essentially bought by another larger manufacturer, and they shut down their operations for that manufacturer and have moved it all to the larger facility. So it's not just a supply chain issue of the parts could be coming. The problem we're having is they're not making the parts anymore, period. So again, it's a large investment, but it's something that we have to look at and discuss and figure out how to solve the issue. I don't think the solution is to fix the ladder truck, anymore at this point. I think, if I were to look back at the last 2-3 years, we've probably spent well over $30,000 a year fixing the ladder truck in some way, shape, or form. It's just not cost prohibitive anymore to sort of keep the ladder truck that we currently have. Again, I'm sure you all know the history. It's been in the newspaper 1,000 times and all that good stuff. Just at some point, I think we just got to cut our losses and move on from it. The good news, I would say, is there is value in the ladder truck, and you're probably sitting here saying, well, if there's value in the ladder truck, why can't you use it? I say there's value because there's other parts of the country who don't use their equipment as much as we do, and would probably serve a southern state very well, and we could probably get a traded value on the truck pretty well. So just something that we need to sort of discuss.
Craig,
Yes, sir.
what do you think the trade-in value would be, and how much are ladder trucks going for right now?
I'm glad you're sitting down.
I know it's probably like
Yeah.
1.2?
Yes, yeah. So you're looking at a new ladder truck today is anywhere between 1.3 and probably 1.5. Again, looking at something that's functional, not something that's glitzy and got every bell and whistle. Something that's functional and that would work for the township is probably, like you said, probably around 1.3.
What do you think we would get for the truck we have?
I think you probably get 250 to 350.
Is it the ladder or the truck that's the problem?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
A little bit of both.
So it's not just that it's the ladder and we could pull the ladder off and use it as a regular truck? Okay.
So, you know, Mr. Mayor, I think at one of the workshops, I think it was the budget workshop, I brought up that the American Rescue Plan passed, right? So there's funds available, and administration in Washington, the Biden administration made available DIY kind of tools, that 405-page line-by-line, go through and see if you can make an application to source funds from that big pot of money. And remember I said that some towns were hiring, you know, fancy consultants, and they're building regular buildings. So I don't know. I think we either do one of two things. Get somebody from Andy King's office here and see if they can help us. Or number two, let's do a high collective here of our minds, and let's go through that 405-page document line by line and see if we can put together our own grant proposal and try to source the funds.
Are you able to get a grant for the truck?
It's not matter.
It's not for federal stimulus money, no. They're using it for all kinds of things now. I'm not saying it's going to work, I'm saying down the on try. The worst that happens.
Oh, yeah, the worst they can say is no, absolutely, I agree.
So the other part of this is because of supply and demand issues. If we were to say, if you were tonight tell me, actually you're not, go buy a ladder truck, we wouldn't see that ladder truck.
Tonight?
No, I'm saying you wouldn't. I wouldn't say that. I'm saying hypothetically, that ladder truck we would not see in West Hampton for almost 2 years, if not over 2 years, just because of.
They got to put it together.
When I talked to the manufacturer a month ago, it was 2 years, and they were pushing on 2.5 years. So.
Let me ask you the question, you know I ask you this every time we talk about the trucks. Chance we could buy a pre-owned truck?
The problem you're going to have is you're buying somebody else's problems.
Right.
So we're going to buy, we're going to get rid of the lemon and probably get another.
Take somebody else.
Buy an orange.
Right.
Why are they getting rid of it?
Right.
Fire departments are holding on to fire trucks for 20 plus years.
Right.
They're making that capital investment long term, and.
I gotta ask.
Unless I knew that ladder truck A coming from township A.
Right.
You know, was for sale, and we knew the history of the ladder truck and stuff like that. Yeah, sure, absolutely. I'm all for it.
But the chances are slim that something like that happens. Yeah.
Military surplus?
No, they're holding on to all their stuff. So facilities, the discussion for the need for a new firehouse has been going on for over a decade. For the main firehouse on Wood Lane Road, multiple studies have been completed detailing major defects within the current building. The floor continues to sink into the ground. The roof leaks, and our air conditioning does not work at all, even after multiple professionals have come in and looked at the HVAC system, and they all walk away saying, "We're not touching it."
Hence the slim look.
What's that?
Hence the slim look.
Like I said, the floor is literally sinking into the ground. If you were to stop at our firehouse currently, there's probably a 20 by 10 patch of highway pavement where a portion of the building was actually sawed out, jackhammered out, and then re-poured with asphalt to sort of stop the floor from caving in. The floor is now, that was probably done 2 years ago now, I would say. That's 2 years ago. It's starting to bow in. You can see where it's starting to go in as well. So it's just something that I know we've talked about a lot, but we need to do something.
So what I do want to say is, because I know we have a lot of people here, like, so thus far, the conversation that we've had up to page 7 is probably about $2 million worth of stuff. For one branch of what the township has to do. Because you still have police, you still have public works.
Well aware.
Okay.
I'm just putting it out there, this is where we're at.
No, I think it's good information because everyone doesn't always know. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's good information because we may say that, but we can't touch everybody for them to know. Like, these are the things that the committee's faced with all the time. Like, so do we get a fire truck, or do we fix the firehouse, or do we do this, or do we do, like, it's a lot of bats to scratch. So I didn't interrupt.
So I went down some pros of only one firehouse. Again, there's been discussion about 2 firehouses. So the pros of one firehouse obviously operates strong in one roof. There's better overall supervision. You don't have to worry about, people in 2 different places. Staffing will not need to be increased dramatically. And we won't need to purchase more apparatus to put in a second firehouse. So just my estimated capital investment for a new firehouse, and I included a public safety building that we have talked about. The police department, anywhere from $7 to $9 million is probably what you're looking at in today's figures. And then the estimated recurring yearly costs for personnel increases for the call domain is probably about $700,000. Again, these numbers are at the end of the project.
And in all fairness, what we've talked about is maybe converting, like, the recreation center over at Spring Meadows into a firehouse, which would still cost upwards of $2-3 million, right? But then the problem with that is that recreation center is booked every single day from residents. But it would save us $4 to $5 million.
If 72% of our calls are ambulances or EMTs, couldn't we just have a second, not firehouse, but a second, because that recreation originally was just an EMT house. So we wouldn't need to put a fire truck there because of the not having that many calls for that, but definitely having an ambulance there.
So I would say yes, absolutely. And that's when I say where we do a tiered improvement of maybe we say we put an ambulance there first. But I think once you do that, you're admitting that we have a problem to that side of town. So yes, I think initially you say, okay, we're going to put an ambulance there to start. But I think the long-term goal has to be that you're planning to put a fire truck there, because once you put that ambulance there, you're telling everybody on that side of town that there's a response issue to that side of town. And I don't think we want to get caught if there was a fire on that side of town. Why did it take so long to get there when you already said there was an issue by putting an ambulance there, if that makes sense. But I think, again, a tiered, slow improvement. Again, this isn't going to happen overnight.
Right, because we'd have to buy another fire truck. We'd have to we'd have to
This is
equip
a
it.
long, looking forward, discussion.
Right.
The pros of 2 firehouses obviously have quicker response time in most areas of the township, generous better deployment of resources, better staff, incentive for both residents and employees, and again, you could phase in resources over time. It's the right thing to do for our residents. Again, they deserve the best. Cost of 2 firehouses. The firehouses have to be constructed or renovated. The staff will most likely probably double in size. I don't think that's happening in any way, shape, or form. Again, I'm a realist. And additional fire trucks and ambulances would need to be purchased. It would require a major financial investment. Again, probably $10 to $15 million on just capital investment of the conversion of the building. Still fixing the firehouse on Wood Lane Road, and then purchase of the equipment to go there with an estimated recurring yearly cost of about $1.5 million. And that's for the people to put in that firehouse on Springside. So just my last thing is, no matter what is chosen, we have to fix the firehouse on Wood Lane Road sooner than later. Like I said, it is legit falling into the ground. There are days when I come in, and I think I said this to Wendy, there's one of these days I'm going to walk in, and the fire truck is going to be through the floor, and I'm just going to walk out.
That's the problem. So have we got any yes? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I mean, we would hold the citizens accountable and shut them down about their house is sinking in. You say you can't go in their house, but yet the township has buildings where they're falling in. I mean, fire department, one of them. I mean, I would buy the, what is it, BMW down, I mean, their stuff is falling in. And their township property. I mean, the township has to, do something about this, fix it. I mean, there are our resources to be able to provide for us. I mean, yeah, that's the township infrastructure. I mean, it should be, safety, yeah, definitely some safety, measures taken and put in. I mean, because how do you want to hold the citizens accountable, but yet the township, we're slipping. We're slipping on, being accountable, but we're holding that homeowners accountable for building and construction and all this type of stuff.
How long has the firehouse been like this?
The floor, I would say, probably started to sink in probably 2007, 2008.
So this is a long problem. This ain't a yesterday problem. So let me ask you this. Did you get an estimate of how much it would cost to get that fixed? Not that money's an issue.
Money is it?
But, no, I said not. Well, instead, I mean, you know what I'm saying, but in certain...
Yeah, in 2000, well, this is dated 2012, and the estimated cost to fix just the floor was $200,000.
That was in
2012.
Yeah,
That was just
12.
But then you got a perfect floor, but no air conditioning.
Exactly.
It probably-
And we have no place to put people, and
Right.
it doesn't,
probably
it doesn't
double
fix
down.
the issue.
Yeah.
Right, was that just, was it even taken care of underneath the floor? Because it was-
Correct. Then in 15 years, right.
I just had my driveway redone. It's like, well, we can just come back over, or you want to do it right, we tear it all out, we come through, we regrade.
You had a question, man?
Yes, Chief, is there only one ladder truck?
Yes.
So if it breaks down,
We have other fire trucks.
wait for a new one, or how long is the wait for the repair?
So, like I said, right now, the ladder truck is in service with a temporary fix. Unfortunately, we're sort of at the mercy of the manufacturer to sort of make a part and to truly fix the problem. No different than, the 10% calls, the 2% calls that we missed. There are ladder trucks coming to West Hampton. They're just coming from a distance. So, for example, the fires that we had, in February, we had a ladder truck from Burlington City and Riverton. It was actually the closest ladder truck that day to get. So it does come from a distance.
How often do you need a ladder truck on call?
I can't answer that question. There's too many variables involved. So I know, Miss Nancy had asked I think the budget meetings, do we really need a ladder truck? And with the.
Yep.
With
I just said we do.
Yeah, with the size of the houses, the amount of warehouses.
And the new houses coming in, apartment complex.
Yeah, 3-story houses.
And that ladder truck also.
Even human services.
On the back end, just a quick history lesson. So all your homeowners insurances are based off of, some of your premiums based off of, our ISO. So our ISO score determines your rates. So right now, we're at 40 out of 10, with 1 being the best. That ladder truck, us just purchasing that ladder truck, took us from a 5 to a 3. So that ladder truck alone probably saves you probably about $150 to $200 a year in your homeowner's insurance.
I like it.
Just for sort of comparison as well.
Craig, since we go,
You can pay for it in your taxes, or you can pay for it in your homeowner's insurance.
since we go to Mount Holly 20 times a month with the fire truck, can't we get them to pay for part of a new truck? I mean, that's what we do with the fields. The company that uses our fields, we say, okay, you put in the new field and you can use it. You pay for
It's
it.
definitely something we can explore in some way, shape, or form. I'm not opposed to having those conversations with the solicitor to sort of walk our way through this. But
So-
we're currently doing it now with somebody, so.
I was waiting for you to look
I wasn't
over at me.
but
So under the mutual aid statute, we are obligated to respond at no cost for EMS to any neighboring town, provided it's not jeopardizing the welfare of the residents of our town.
But we have a contract with East Hampton to do all of their EMS.
So how the statute's written is there's one section that obligates us to respond to the towns at no cost. There's another section that allows us to negotiate a contract for reimbursement of costs. So the chief and I have talked about is we can ask neighboring towns and attempt to call on their good graces to do the right thing and reimburse. The other thing that the township, that West Hampton can do is, and other towns in Burlington County have done, is determine what places the residents of the town at risk. And if there's not a fire truck available in West Hampton or an EMT not available in West Hampton, that could be a situation determined to be placing the residents at risk. And then we're justified in not responding to Mount Holly, Williamboro, or wherever
The
else.
back end of this as well, so just so you understand as well. So when we send an ambulance somewhere, we're collecting insurance billing on that call. So
But not for fire.
not for fire. So for every time, I can't say every time, because obviously certain people don't have insurance, Medicaid, Medicare, stuff like that. So when we go and we transport a patient to the hospital, we're seeking reimbursement from the insurance company for that. Some of that then offsets our costs and such. The sad part, I can't say the sad part, but one of the difficulties is, 10 years ago, if you were to look at our billing revenue, it was probably about $550,000. Now you look at it today, and we're doing 30% more calls than we are 10 years ago, and it's still $550,000. And mostly of that is because of the insurance just aren't paying anymore. A lot of it has to do with the Affordable Health Care Act that brought down some of those reimbursements. So we're essentially responding to 30% more calls, but bringing in the same amount of revenue than we did 10 years ago. So it's like one of those, there's a very fine balance of answering the calls to make the money and then not answering the calls to make sure that we're okay as well.
So, two things. One, if we were to go after neighboring towns, they could potentially go back to us. So, I mean, like, it wasn't necessarily really solid.
Again, if we had 100 people working, yes, we could say, we could say that the neighboring towns, we don't need your help because we have 100 people working. We don't have that opportunity, and we never will. So we heavily rely on our neighbors to help us. Unfortunately, some neighbors rely on us more than we rely on them, and it's a very fine line.
So the other piece, so I know with cars, it can be searched to see how many of a specific model are out there, and I wonder if the same thing could be done from a fire truck standpoint, to know like how many were produced and were in the U.S., right, for the model that we have, and then maybe see how many are still in service versus not in service.
So just for example, and pure example is Matt Laurel bought the exact same ladder truck that we did. It's 1 year older than our truck. It's already out of service. They've already replaced it completely.
I think Camden Fire has the same thing, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, they have the same truck.
The manufacturer we purchased, nobody has bought that manufacturer in Burlington County since we bought the ladder truck.
Yeah.
But what I was getting at is, whether it's possible to, I know we're trying to acquire new parts, right? But is it possible to get used parts or something like that?
So to
to
answer
have
your question,
a spare?
yes, one day I drove all the way down to Salem County to get a part off of a fire truck that our service rep said was there. He actually called and they were going to overnight it, and I said, nope, I'll drive and I'll pick it up so it's here, and that part didn't work. So yes, we support it all, we really have.
I was just putting it out there because it's a time thing, right? If you're waiting 2 years, but then you're still sitting on useless equipment, and obviously we found ways of band-aiding so far, And I imagine what's stopping its work is, from what I've read, is the main controller, right? We just went through something similar in our in-house home with our oven. The main controller went, no longer produced, so I had to line it up. But if there is a way to find controllers and just have them sitting there just in case.
So Brett, these parts can't be 3D fabricated?
I don't know.
Well, it's,
To be honest with you.
it's probably with the electronics.
Sounds like we need to just put that order and give them to furniture for 2 years from now. Right. Can you talk to us about burden? The police that are top fire department, our water department, still special to me. So can you talk to us about burden? I understand the other townships will help us, and they're coming from a distance, as you mentioned, but what does that mean in terms of burden, specifically mortality or injury for our residents waiting for them to come for however long it may take them?
Again, I don't know if I have the right answer for what you're looking for. I can tell you that, the house fires that we have in town, we were on location in under 3 minutes from the time that people dialed 911. We were very quick out the door. Probably quicker than most. Because, somebody said it earlier, our people really care about the community. And they really love their job and they love coming to work here. And they want to do the best they can when they come to work. So like I said, they were on location within 3 minutes. A lot of time we're waiting for Mount Laurel. Mount Laurel is our second arriving fire truck coming from Louisville, exit 43. What's that?
I know, well,
So that they're usually pulling up, a couple minutes behind us. Again, it's that whole roll of the dice of how many people are on the fire truck. If somebody was trapped in one of those houses, and at one point we did think that somebody was trapped, it becomes very hard to do all that at once, trying to put the fire out, search for people, hook up the hose to the fire hydrant. It's a lot to do, so I can't really give you a number or even a percentage of that. All I can say is the fatalities and the injuries that we had in town is not because you didn't have people working or because you didn't have working equipment. I can honestly tell you that people were on location very quickly to start getting what we need done.
Thank you.
How's local fundraising?
It's yeah. You can fundraise.
I'm not saying that. No, just like, I know we sent money in, right? I didn't know how well.
So that money, so when you send in money, just so you can understand, so once a year, the fire company sends out a donation money. So that goes to the quote-unquote volunteer fire company. And what they do is we use that money to fund things that the township doesn't always fund. So sometimes there's food after a major incident that may occur at times. They also pay for our CPR training and our any major training that maybe the fire department just can't physically pay for. The volunteers pay for that kind of stuff. And it's really it's worked well. We're again, one of the few places still where a volunteer can show up any day of the week, 24 hours a day, 365, and get on a fire truck with somebody getting a paycheck next to them, and they're treated as an equal through and through. Not many places we have a volunteer show up and drive a fire truck with career people in the back of the fire truck. Most places, that paid guy owns that steering wheel, and they're not letting anybody else drive it. And in West Hampton, we have volunteers that drive the fire trucks. They show up, they do 12 hours, they do 24 hours, and they're treated no different than any other, employee potential. So we are very lucky to have that.
Chief Farnsworth?
Yes, ma'am.
15 minutes.
I'm done. So if there's any other questions, I know I've inundated you and asked for a lot.
You done a nice sales job.
Yes.
You always do, right?
Yes.
Any questions?
I think as he was saying, the national disaster assistance probably should be explored because I know there's a lot of nonprofits, a lot of small cities that have gotten that money to build buildings, get fire trucks for their local county. That's what they'll
So I can tell you, me personally, is we write no less than probably 3 or 4 grants a year for various different projects. We had a very hot streak, probably over 5 years, where we were, every year, we're getting 1 or 2 grants for hiring people or equipment or personal protective gear and all this stuff. And it's just become super competitive. You know, we're one fire department in the United States that's, you know, we're asking for, you know, $7 million. Well, there's 10,000 more fire departments that are asking for $7 million. So we are actively, and we do apply for every grant that's possibly out there. The governor yesterday, you know, announced a $10 million grant for fire departments. We will be applying for a $75,000 maximum contribution. Once that comes out, we will 100% be applying for that money. We work. We're working hard to figure out where to get the money from.
So you guys do the university, you have the grant writers.
What? I'm sorry?
How do you guys write the grants? You have a company that you're choosing?
A little bit of both. So for a while, we were writing them internally. And then when we started, we were getting a lot of grants awarded like over a 5-year period. And then the well sort of dried up. And then we sort of looked outside and sort of just revamp. So now what I do is I probably write half of them myself, and then a grant writer writes the other half of them. Just so that there's a little bit of balance. And then what I end up doing is I'll take what he wrote, that doesn't get funded, I'll take what he wrote, change it around, and then submit it the next year. So we're not paying twice for the same grant. So.
That's great.
Thank you very much.
Anything?
Nah, you did great. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
We're going to close workshop. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
So, second.
Roll call?
Berkeley?
Yes?
Carr?
Yes.
De Silva?
Yes.
Mayor Henley?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Now we're going to go into executive session. Resolution number 517, 2022. Resolution authorizing the mayor, township committee, and supporting staff to meet in private session and authorizing the exclusion of the public from that portion of the meeting dealing with specific issues requiring non-public discussion personnel. The session will occur after adjournment. No official action will be taken. Do we have a motion?
Silver make a motion.
Second, Berkeley.
Roll call.
Berkeley?
Yes?
Carr?
Yes.
De Silva?
Yes.
Mayor Henley?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
We will now enter into a closed executive session. This meeting will be officially adjourned at the end of the closed session. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night. Thanks for coming out. Want to do the close?